Yellowstone experts warn weak point in Yellowstone could spark eruption and trigger aftershocks for thousands of years. Is that why Yellowstone Caldera Chronicles did not mention the downgrading of the 5.0 to a 4.4 recently? Yellowstone, the supervolcano that sits on the Ring of Fire. Experts say Yellowstone eruption can trigger a chain of aftershocks over thousands of years. A Yellowstone volcano eruption in the northwest U.S. could trigger a deadly chain of eruptions and aftershocks tens of thousands of years after the first blast. This is what the shocking evidence of the new findings states. Is by Sebastian Ketley on Express today. Volcano studies around the globe found supervolcanoes do not act as regular volcanoes, and supervolcanoes do not stop activity after blowing up in a super eruption as regular volcanoes. They don't act like regular volcanoes whatsoever. There are earthquakes and their magma, everything is different. The supervolcano, even a nearby earthquake can rupture the huge magma chamber roof and cause an eruption, from what one of the latest studies has found. Now, a supervolcano system like Yellowstone volcano would likely continue to erupt and spew volcanic material centuries after its initial eruption tears through the United States. This is according to a study published by Oregon State University, OSU. Super eruptions, they say, are among the most devastating cataclysm known to man. And if you see one of my previous videos yesterday having to do with ash, it's tens of stories of ash. I mean, it's whole mountains of ash. Can you imagine a whole area covered with mountains of ash that high? It's unbelievable. So according to the study, super eruptions are among the most devastating cataclysm known to man. Supervolcanoes have been known to choke out the skies and affect global weather for decades after erupting, meaning, of course, that life as we know it, or the known life at that time, would be extinct. So now, because of this, University of Oregon researchers have investigated the suspected links between the recent volcanic blasts and ancient eruptions. The scientists found a connection between the eruption of Mount Sinabung in Indonesia and an eruption of Toba caldera from 74,000 years ago. Now, it seems to me that a lot has happened 70,000 years ago. We had the Long Valley eruption, we had the Valles caldera eruption, we had the Yellowstone smaller eruption than the huge super eruption that we had 640,000 years ago, and we had the Sinabung and the Toba caldera eruption from 74,000 years ago. It seems to me that there was a huge amount of volcano and supervolcano activity around that time. I wonder if something happened to the tectonic plates, subsiding plates. There must have been a lot of shaking around. Now, Adonara Musek, the study's lead author at OCU, said, "The recovery from a supervolcanic eruption is a long process." We're talking about supervolcanoes. And we even see the regular volcanoes are very bubbly, and they're full of activity even though their eruption has ceased. They re-erupt. We see that again in Venezuela and Chile, and just now posted a Mexico volcano eruption. Now, the recovery from supervolcano eruption is a long process, as the volcano and the magmatic system try to reestablish their equilibrium. It's like a body of water that has been disrupted by a rock being dropped into it. Quote, "At Toba, it appears that the eruptions continued for at least 15,000 to 20,000 years after the supervolcano eruption. And the supervolcano eruption is called a super eruption. So after the super eruption and the structural adjustment continued at least until a few centuries ago, and probably is continuing today. Can you imagine? After 20,000 years. So It is a magmatic equivalent to aftershocks following an earthquake. It's the same thing with an eruption. There's more eruptions going on. Now, when Toba last reared its ugly head, the volcano released 28,000 times more magma than the 1980 eruption on Mount St. Helens in the United States. The resulting volcanic winter is believed to have lasted for years, and scientists speculate it placed a bottleneck on human evolution. Well, I should think so. Worse yet, supervolcanoes like Yellowstone and Toba have incredibly long lifespans, far longer than humanity has been on this planet. This by Callum Hoare, Express UK. Yellowstone volcano warning. Experts reveal the weak point that could spark the eruption. The Yellowstone, as we know, is a supervolcano, and it could erupt suddenly after a chain reaction from a quote-unquote weak spot in the national park. And this is what a bombshell documentary now reveals. The Yellowstone volcano has erupted 3 times in history: 2.1 million years ago, 1.2 million years ago, 640,000 years ago, and it's had a smaller eruption since then, about 70,000 years ago, and a lot of other nearby volcanoes also had, about the same time, a super eruption, namely Long Valley caldera, even the supervolcano of Valles caldera, about 600 miles south of Yellowstone, and other volcanoes worldwide, about 70,000 years ago. Now, scientists have previously revealed that should an earthquake occur, it could take less than 2 weeks before a catastrophic reaction event with the potential to wipe out 3/4 of the United States is triggered. And experts identified a weak spot within Yellowstone National Park that could also be a catalyst to this. Norris Geyser Basin. It's the hottest and most unstable geyser area located outside of the caldera. It constantly has geologists like Jacob Lowenstein on his toes because the molten rock causes it to rise and fall. In other words, the area bulges and subsides, and it was revealed during BBC's Supervolcano series. Now, the U.S. Geological Survey researcher revealed, this was back in 2015, Norris Geyser is one of the most dynamic within Yellowstone, he said. It was always changing, and we are always noticing new things happening. It's not actually in the caldera, yet has the highest temperature. It's possible there is some magma that has extended to the north beneath the region. It should the molten rock rise too high, it could cause the geyser to blow, forming an earthquake. Now, Dr. Robert Smith, another researcher with USGS, believes an event like this is in an unstable area would be enough to set off what he would say is a chain reaction. He said an earthquake here would form the heartbeat of the system, so you can understand how bad that would be. In other words, an earthquake. And this is just one of the fumaroles and the geysers that we see there in that area. They say it is an important part of the active volcano. Like smoke and fire, volcanoes and earthquakes go hand in hand. The last eruption of Yellowstone produced about 2,500 times more volcanic material than the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens. This created an eruptive column so colossal, so massive, that it covered about 60% of the whole of the continental United States in a thick layer of ash. Now, this is one of the images of that area. You can see how many geysers are off there and very active. Unfortunately, the cameras, the live webcam cameras that were on there 24/7 are down. They've taken them off for some reason. They're saying they're replacing them. This was after I posted a video. One of my viewers was kind enough to send us videos and pictures of what she took she noticed that they were following this area very closely. Even at night, they had floodlights and taking images of it under floodlights. Can you imagine? And there was a very strange eruptive activity of geysers there. And then all of a sudden, a few days later, 2 or 3 days later, they claimed that they had to replace the cameras, and they didn't know when the cameras would be replaced. So we have no live images of the Norris Geyser Basin anymore. And we don't know when they're going to be back up again. And that's very unusual in my book. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.